Well, I'd like to welcome you to Lesson 3. In Lesson 1, you may remember we covered 6 points, basically the 6 words for how to introduce PowerPoint into your classroom with the purpose of creating critical thinkers. Those 6 words were find, organize, relate to your audience, grab their attention, evoke a response by helping the audience have a clear takeaway, and then ahead of time practice. In Lesson 2, the lesson right before this lesson, we actually talked about the 5 main sections that are in a PowerPoint slide. Those 5 sections are before you right now. I'm not going to go into full screen because I want you to see those 5 sections. It's the quick access toolbar, the tabs, the ribbon, the slide pane on the left, and then the active slide that you're looking at now. This particular lesson is extremely important, and you'll be teaching your students a lifelong skill that applies not just to technology, but it applies to their entire life of preparing for how to communicate in an effective way that's sequential. So the title of this lesson is Learn How to Build Your Story and Use the PowerPoint ribbon to add pictures, graphics, and slide transitions. As you know, there's a total of 7 lessons, and we are on Lesson 3. And in each of these lessons, we're taking one of those 6 words that we presented in the very first lesson as the theme. And the theme for this particular lesson is organize your information into a storyline. That's why we have in red there the second circle. The lesson plan is very basic, and I realize I'm going a little bit fast here because this presentation has a lot of very good information for you, and I want to make sure I pack it in while at the same time not making the video too long for you. So the objective is to learn how to build your story and use the PowerPoint ribbon to add pictures, graphics, slide, and transitions. Step 1 is build your story by creating an outline. Step 2, learn the key features of the ribbon. Step 3, add pictures. Step 4, add graphics. And step 5, add slide transitions. So let's start with step 1. Build your story by creating an outline. And so if I were you and I were teaching your students, I would, before they even open up their computer, laptop, or turn on their iPad, or turn on the monitor, have them write down some points of a story, or of an idea, or of some research. But they should present it in a way that's logical, where the first point really introduces the topic, and then it goes through a logical order. So I presented just some 5 points here on how to stop worrying. I think a lot of us who are teachers could use a little bit of help of how to not get stressed. And so there's 5 simple points. Point 1, introduction, how to stop worrying. That's my first point. 2, these points are all, by the way, from Dale Carnegie. He wrote 2 books. One book was entitled How to Win Friends and Influence People, and the other book was How to Start Living and Stop Worrying. Okay, whether you agree with his philosophy or not, he's a business consultant, and people around the world take information from his classes. And he's produced a program that actually helps people become effective in their business life. And he has some points of how to stop worrying. Point 2 is, the first way is, live in a day-tight compartment. What does that mean? That just means focus what you need to do every day on just that day's work. Don't worry about yesterday and forget about the failures of yesterday. And don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will bring its own problems. Focus on just today. And he talks about someone really famous who actually did lots of things in his life. And that one person's secret was they learned to just focus on what they had to do for today. So he phrased it as live in day-tight compartments. Actually, that comes from a kind of an analogy how in a ship, a big ship that's in the ocean, if water starts to come into one part of the ship, many of them have these automatic walls that close off so that water doesn't seep in to the entire ship. And so they're airtight compartments. And so we need to learn to do that with our days, and that is we shut off everything from the past. We don't let all the worries of yesterday leak in. And we don't worry about tomorrow. We shut off that particular wall, and we live in a day-tight compartment. It's actually a very effective way to reduce stress. Point 3 here, analyze what is worrying you. So Dale Carnegie basically says what you should do is you need to challenge what's worrying you by, first of all, think about what's the worst that could happen. 2 is accept the worst that can happen. Don't always fight against it. We spend so much energy trying to fight against what may be inevitable. And then number 3 is come up with a plan to improve upon the worst that can happen. In other words, go into action to make sure that the worst that could happen doesn't happen. Improve it. Okay, 4 is pray. Now, you may not be a person of faith, but whether you're a person of faith or not, prayer, Dale Carnegie says, does 3 things. Number 1 is it helps you articulate and put into words what's bothering you. Number 2 is it gives you a sense of your problem being shared by someone higher. And then 3 is prayer puts into action one of the most basic principles for how to get out of depression and start to feel better. And that is you act and you do something practical. And prayer is an actual practical thing you can do. The last thing is understand the law of averages. And what's the law of averages? The law of averages is basically this. It's you think to yourself, out of all the times that I worried in the past, what is the percentage of time that the worst thing that ever could have happened that I worried about actually happened? And you'll realize, maybe 10% of the times that you worried, the worst thing happened. But really, 90% of the time, the worst thing that could have happened never happened. And so you apply that law of averages. Okay, so I'm not trying to make you captive audience to some kind of thing. I'm just trying to give you some points where, as a professional, they relate to you. If I was talking to kindergartners or seniors, it'd be something different. But I had to think to myself, what would teaching professionals, maybe like hearing. And so I came up with this particular topic, how to stop worrying. Okay, so then step 2 is let's learn the key features of the ribbon. Okay, these are the key features. Basically, each of these tabs is a different feature, and I'm going to go through this really quickly. There's the File tab up at the top, and here you can create a new document, you can open past documents, you can save your document, and you can print your document. The Home tab has a lot of the common features. You can give your different points different colors. So you click up here in the color for the actual letters. I was about to say the font, but actual letters. And then you give it a color. And so that's how I changed the Home row there to the color of what? Maroon. Okay, then the next tab is Insert. Insert allows you to insert things. So you can just go ahead and, I'll show you this in a little bit, insert pictures. The Design tab allows you to apply a design. For instance, if you like this particular design, whoa, these are really wild designs. Here, let's go to something simple. Let's say you like this design. So you can click on that, and if you look at the left pane, it applies that design to all of your slides. Very simple. By the way, if you ever want to undo something, just go to the top here, this little blue arrow, and click that, or you can click Control-Z. Then you have transitions, animations, slideshow, and review. Transitions allow for you to click one of these so that you can have a fancier transition from one slide to another. I personally don't encourage fancy transitions just because they can become a distraction. And people who are good presenters focus on content as opposed to showmanship. Animations are very helpful. I do encourage you to use these. We'll show this in a little bit. Slideshow, if you click on this first button, it actually puts everything in full screen and allows you to click on your mouse or your down arrow to go to the different slides. And then the review slide allows for people to review your PowerPoint presentations. So if you're going to present to the principal or to a funder or to the parents of your class on an open house night, then basically what you can do is you may want to pass your slide to some of your colleagues and have them review it first. They can go ahead and then highlight something, click on this particular tab called New Comment and say, I don't like this slide. Get rid of it. And then they can email it back to you and that comment will stay there. So it's very helpful. The review allows for your colleagues to review your slides. And then there's view here, and you can view things in different formats. So let's get into the demo of add pictures, of adding graphics, and of adding transitions. So we're going to do this very quickly. I'm going to click on File, I click on New, and I click on Blank Presentation. And then basically what I do is, on the first slide, your students at this point should have their piece of paper next to them where they wrote down their points. And then what they can do for the first point, the introduction, that can be the title of the first slide. How to Stop Worrying by Donnie Wise. Okay, we presented 4 points of how to stop worrying. So what you can do is you can click here to the left, and then you can click New Slide. And since there's 4 subpoints, add 4 slides by clicking New Slide 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then what you can do is you can click on the second slide, and for each of your points that they wrote on their paper, they can write the main point up in the title of each slide. So what was the first? I have to go back and look at what those 4 points were. It is live in day-tight compartments. What was the second? Analyze what is worrying you. What was the third? Is to pray. And what's the fourth? Understand the law of averages. Okay? And then what you can do is you can go to each of these and you can fill the information out. Okay, so let's say in this very first one of live in day-tight compartments, one thing you want to do today is look at something that makes you happy. Okay? And then, since I was going to show you how to add a picture, if you want to add a picture, click on the Insert tab up here. Click Pictures. This takes you to a desktop. You can find where your pictures are, and then you click Insert. Okay, so one thing that helps me relax is looking at a picture that really relaxes me. This is a picture of a cat. I really like cats. And so you just saw how to insert a picture. The other thing I wanted to show you was how to add graphics. So how about the next one? Analyze. You want to actually add a graphic. Well, you can do this. You can click on Insert, click on Smart Art, and then you can pick from these different Smart Art options that help you actually present ideas in a logical format. I'm going to actually choose this one. I click OK, and it gives me a nice little graphic that I can use to help you understand how to analyze. So first, write down what is worrying you. 2, accept the worst. And then 3, improve upon the worst. Okay, I'm not going to get into all details, and I hope you're not getting into this philosophical mode of, you know what, Donnie, I don't even know what you're talking about here. The focus is these little smart art graphics are outstanding ways to give people an understanding of what you're talking about. That little blue arrow in the background, it gives you a sense that there's a progression from left to right. Okay, then the last thing I wanted to demo is basically adding transitions. So again, I told you I'm not a big transition person, but let's say you do want to add a transition, and that is when I'm here, I click on transitions, and I want there to be a kind of a fade experience. So I'll click fade here. So what it does is when it comes to that particular slide, it does that type of transition. For this slide, I'm going to do a push. For this slide, I'm going to do a wipe. For this slide, I'll do a split. So then when you click on, to play your presentation, you go ahead and click on this little slideshow thing here, or you can go ahead and click on slideshow and just click from the beginning. So if I click on from the beginning, it takes me to this. I'm now in presentation mode. It hides almost all of the elements, the quick access bar, etc. And now I'm on the active slide, but it's full screen. If I click return, I did a transition that pulls things up. If I click enter again or return, it actually did a fade away. And if I click return again, it does a fade away again. So that's basically this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Do the reading portion. I do want to prepare you. At the end of lesson 4, you're going to have a little midterm. And then at the end of lesson 7, I'm going to have you turn in a PowerPoint presentation. So up to this point, you haven't had to send me anything. But be prepared. At the end of this course, you'll have to send me a presentation on a particular topic. I'll see you in lesson 4. Thank you very much.